Okay, I guess we'll just read what this thing says and then move on. Oh. You were waiting for that.
Yes, I was.
Holy. Alright. Yep, you got me. You got me. I'm a little spooked. Welcome to our channel, where we talk about systems in the games we play and how those inspire the ones we make.
Now guys, we usually talk about game mechanics, aka the systems in play, but when it comes to the 2016 horror walking sim Layers of Fear, the mechanics boil down to walking and reading.
Despite this, we felt compelled to discover what about these simple mechanics made this game so memorable. I'm Sam.
And I'm CJ, and this is Systems in Play.
Big spoiler warning ahead for Layers of Fear, specifically the 2016 version. We always recommend supporting the devs, so go out and play this game. However, if you don't have the time or the money, we played this through live on stream and put the VODs up on this very channel. Go check it out.
Layers of Fear is a horror game released in 2016 made by Poland-based developer Bloober Team, whom you may know from their other horror titles Observer, Blair Witch, or even the Silent Hill 2 remake.
In this video, we're going to talk about what playing this game means to you as the player. We're going to take an in-depth look at the protagonist, his experiences, and ultimately your experiences as you explore the main setting, your mansion.
So first, let's talk about what you're doing here. A huge portion of your time will be spent walking, for you see, this game is a walking sim that came out at a time when walking sims were all the rage. Most of the story of the game is told through mementos you find while exploring the mansion. When you pick these up, you get some insights into what the object means to the protagonist through short audio clips.
Ow! What is this crap?
The time that's not spent walking and listening will most likely be spent reading. While most of the story is told through the aforementioned mementos, context is added through various documents. You could very well avoid these, but you'll miss out on 80% of the game. And that 80% of the game is figuring out what the hell is going on. You see, when you select Start New Game, you're given a cryptic little intro.
I know how you must feel. Lost, alone, hopeless. You deserve it.
And one goal.
Finish it!
Finish what? Who's even speaking to me right now? Where am I? There's only one way to answer all these questions. Start exploring. Walk to this table. Read that letter. Go into the basement. I promise, there's nothing scary down there. Your influence over the game doesn't end with the items you choose to look at. The game is riddled with choices you have to make that have a larger impact on the version of the story that you experience. A lot of these choices boil down to, do I want to shit my pants or not? Do I go towards the spooky lady? Do I want to know what left this mysterious paint trail? She's right behind me, isn't she? For a first playthrough, the average player will most likely avoid getting scared. That's sane. But as you dig deeper into the story, you realize that the brown dribblies are worth it for the lore.
Jesus.
Facing your fears will almost always give you a little bit more story through hidden documents or mementos, which for the sake of brevity, we will be referring to henceforth as documentos. The most fun we had in this game, besides shitting ourselves.
Okay, that's enough shit talk for one video.
The most fun we had in this game, besides the bits where we were scared, was putting pieces of the story together and solving the mystery.
At the heart of this mystery, and to be frank, the entire game, is the protagonist, the painter. As much as this game is about you piecing together the story, it is simultaneously the story of a man who has lost his mind. While you, the player, are learning about the past through the various documentos, you, the protagonist, are reliving it. The way the game is laid out, you're expected to traverse the mansion and require a different body part at the end of each chapter. By finding these parts, we learn what it is that the painter is supposed to finish. He's using the body parts as art supplies for an unfinished painting in his studio. They give us a little insight into who he is, as well as a glimpse into his dark reality. A full stare into his twisted perspective would make most simply go insane.
Yes! That's it!
Besides these in-chapter mementos, every other memento also has the painter relive a section of his past, both good and bad. By the end of the second chapter, it becomes apparent that he ain't a great guy. The nameless and silent protagonist you embody slowly comes into focus as a real piece of shit, as a real piece of work. We find out that he's a bit of an alcoholic.
This is Daddy's medicine. Whenever Daddy's hurting, this helps the hurt go away.
And he's just a little crazy.
Hey, I can do that too.
We also find out, and apologies to all the ladies, he's taken.
The thought alone that the most beautiful piece of art doesn't have my name on it is killing me. So, will you marry me?
Though his relationship is going through a bit of a rough patch. Remember how we said avoiding the scares is the sane thing to do? Well, by now I hope you've picked up on the fact that our painter here is anything but. A lot of the scariest moments in the game come from the wife.
What can I say? PT got it right the first time.
The entire story of the game is actually about their relationship. His wife was his muse, and throughout the game, there's mention of a painting that he did as a tribute to her beauty, the Lady in Black. She is established as a famous pianist, and you find out in a documento that he has her play while he paints. Her music and beauty are two essential parts of his creative process. All this changed after a fire mars her face and leaves her unable to play the piano. This sends the painter down a spiral of alcoholism and schizophrenia. The woman he once saw as his muse, he now sees as a horrifying monster. His words, not mine. This perception of her leads most players to avoid what we see as a literal monster, and that makes sense. In doing so, though, the player is acting on the painter's fear of what he thinks his wife is, rather than confronting the reality that she's no more than a broken woman. Throughout your journey, you see her several times, and you're never really chased by her, and it's typically pretty easy to avoid her altogether, which is unusual for a horror game. With each encounter, you can choose to walk toward her, which almost always triggers a jump scare. Consistently avoiding her throughout the game leads to an ending where the painter paints a picture that he doesn't like, with his wife laughing at his failure in a great animation. In the final cutscene, he throws the painting into a pile of similar paintings, and the game starts over. An endless cycle of avoiding your past and obsessing over your work. Thus, by actively avoiding her, you're actively avoiding the reality, driving the poor painter further into insanity. When you, the player, face your fears, you, the painter, face your reality. This is the only way to break the cycle and see your wife
And daughter, but that's a whole other DLC worth of story.
as they really are.
Even more important than what you achieve in the game is how it makes you feel. From the get-go, you get the sense walking around your mansion that your surroundings aren't quite what they seem. You're given a brief period before entering the painter's studio to walk around a seemingly normal-looking house. Once you enter and exit the studio, however, the game is really good at making you, the player, feel like an alcoholic schizophrenic. The halls are constantly changing, doors appear where they weren't before, and did that painting always have a smile?
The game does an uncannily good job of recognizing what you're looking at, how long you're focused on it, and what is just out of sight. In the time it takes to look over your shoulder, the entire contents of the room might change. You start to question if the room you're looking at is even the same one you just came from. Paintings start to subtly change every time they leave your peripheral, and all this makes you feel like you're losing your mind right alongside the painter.
The game is also good at eliciting feelings of sadness, anger, or even sympathy towards the protagonist and his family, even when you don't fully understand why. There are moments told where you see that the painter truly does love his wife. There are times when you see the painter having an actual good relationship with his daughter.
You beat me again. Sometimes I wonder why I even bother. Good thing we didn't bet on it. What? What's so funny?
And later in the game, you get a lot of flashbacks of the painter truly losing his family. He begins to abhor his wife, and he thinks she's leaving hateful post-it notes on his paintings. The alcohol leads him to start yelling at his daughter, and eventually he even loses custody of her. These moments are revealed out of order through the documentos, making the game a roller coaster of hating this vile man and then pitying what he's become.
Every time you leave the painter's studio, you meander through non-existent, sometimes nonsensical architecture. Most of the documentos you find in these nonsense parts of the house give you information and teach you about the family's history. How you're supposed to feel about that information is usually pretty explicit. Toward the end of each chapter, though, you arrive at one of the actual rooms in the mansion, where a fun little scene plays out whose meaning is more up for interpretation. Each of these scenes is unique visually and mechanically from the rest of the game, and contain minimal dialogue. In the various scenes, furniture floats through your basement, you platform through a distorted version of your office, or swim down a bizarre world in your bathtub.
For this next part, we're going to recap some of our favorite moments from these scenes.
First, let's talk about what happens when you get to your office. The scene feels like you're playing a completely different game in the best possible way. For the first time, you're actually solving puzzles, albeit simple ones. You're scouring through his office, finding phone numbers, and the ultimate challenge, learning how to put these numbers into a rotary phone.
My favorite part of the scene was the reveal that your office now extended to space. A book falls from higher than you think the bookshelf goes, prompting you to look up. Only then do you discover that there is no more ceiling, but instead an endless wall of books and paintings. Another cool moment, and my personal favorite part of the game, is when you get to your daughter's room and put the key into her toy carousel. Suddenly, your perspective shifts to the top of the carousel as it starts slowly spinning around the room. While spinning, various things start occurring in the room. A window slams itself shut over and over. The toys come to life, the lights go out, and all the while a creepy music box rendition of the main theme is playing. The scene is never scary, but instead gives off more of an eerie vibe, and it's just chef's kiss. It was also the first and only point in the game that feels like a cutscene.
I think that this loss of control adds to the sense of unease. Throughout most of the tableau, the room is washed in an intense yellow light coming from the carousel. It's one of the only moments in any horror mini I've seen that uses light to convey fear, rather than darkness, and it works so well. Like CJ said, this part isn't very scary, but if you took the time to find the documentos for this chapter, you learn about the failing relationship between the painter and his daughter. This knowledge colors the entire scene in a sense of eerie melancholy as you're reminded of the neglect and isolation she experienced in this house. To contrast this, the scene for Chapter 3 ending in the basement imparted emotion even without context. While I went into this game blind, this was CJ's second playthrough, and our differences in knowledge made the scene impact each of us differently. For me, I heard the somber music and watched objects float through the room with a sense of awe and sadness, though I wasn't really sure why I felt the latter. The music would be suddenly cut off by the pianist slamming on the keys, causing all the objects in the room to crash down. To me, this felt like it was adding horror and a little bit of jump scare, but not much else.
Up to that point in the game, there was enough context to realize that the piano is supposedly being played by the painter's wife. This being my second playthrough, I realized this time that the reason she occasionally slams on the piano is not because she's trying to scare the player, but because she keeps messing up due to the injuries she sustained in the fire. Suddenly, this scene that was supposed to be a mixture of beautiful piano interspersed with fear is now a scene of sadness and being unable to overcome physical trauma. This was probably the first light bulb moment during this playthrough where I discovered that knowledge of the story paints all of these scenes in a very different light. This was when I realized that if you dig deeper into the story and characters, you'll be rewarded with neat little revelations like this. And I think that perfectly sums up what this game is all about.
So why isn't Layers of Fear a movie?
Because it's a game?
Layers of Fear manages to tell a story about a painter who lost his family and slowly went insane, while simultaneously having the story be guided by the player's feelings, whether those be fear or a desire to see him come to terms with reality. This connection between the player and the protagonist is something that simply cannot be done in film.
Happy Spooky Month, everybody. We're trying more of a scripted layout this time. If you made it this far, let us know what you thought about this experiment.
And if you like our shit, we'd appreciate it if you showed us to a friend. We don't advertise. Everything we do is through word of mouth and a bit of praying to the algorithm gods.
So we'll see you in the next project, whatever that may be. Thanks for watching, and never forget...
Thank you.